revealed how a new nanny transformed the millionaire CEO's twin daughters into incredible eaters. As Tom Harrison stared out his glass window, surveying his sprawling Silicon Valley estate, a gnawing sense of unease overtook him. He had built an empire from the ground up, yet how could a man with a net worth in the millions living in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods feel so helpless? Despite all his riches, his twin daughters, Lily and Emma, were growing increasingly harder to feed. Desperate for more than just gourmet takeout, he sought help in the form of Michelle, a new nanny whose humble approach stood in stark contrast to his meticulously curated life. At first, hope flickered in Tom's chest. Michelle boasted a vibrant passion for food, she championed inclusivity, and spoke joyfully of cultural cuisines. Yet as the days passed, he watched her attempts to engage the girls devolve into tug-of-war games over peas, carrots, and even vibrant dishes from distant lands. Just try a bite. He'd overhear Michelle plead as despair washed over him. He wasn't just frustrated with their defiance. He questioned whether a woman without wealth could truly instill gratitude within children molded by privilege. The irony felt palpable. He had achieved everything, yet his daughters' palates brushed aside the possibilities of food while they core-determined lunch around their comfort zones. Despite his qualms, the warmth of Michelle's playful cooking sessions echoed in their kitchen, laughter mixing with the aroma of fresh ingredients. He wanted this to work. Why wouldn't Lily and Emma just expand their horizons? The twins often crossed their arms, suppressing giggles while turning up their noses at the multicolored bounty before them. As Tom moved from the shadows to stand in the kitchen doorway, he locked eyes with their determination and felt the tension grip his chest. This was not just about food, it revealed a journey far more complex, the very heart of parenting. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The pressure mounted that fateful evening when Michelle presented a strange vegetable. The girls balked at an artichoke, vibrant and strange. They even laughed at its peculiar shape. Michelle's enthusiasm clashed with their mirth, transforming a cooking session into turmoil. "Don't touch it!" Emma screeched, recoiling in disbelief, triggering an emotional explosion. Suddenly, they debated the significance of their privileged upbringing versus those in less fortunate circumstances who would relish the opportunity to dare a simple taste. Tom felt his heart race, each beat echoing his failure as a father as he failed to foster their compassion while he transported them from exclusive private schools to lavish vacations, filling their lives with material abundance. This was the dangerous tipping point. His inner conflict escalated as he stood paralyzed. Was discipline more important, or was it essential for them to learn the fight against superficiality? Realization began gnawing at his mind like a biting cold wind. But just then, the piercing ring of his phone shattered the moment. A family crisis was calling. A whirlwind of dread settled around him as he struggled to pair the priorities of corporate success with the need to nurture his daughter's spirits. As he picked up the phone, he couldn't ignore it any longer. The journey toward healing and family would require deeper reflection. It wasn't just the food on their plates, but the connections in their hearts that remained uncharted. Tom pressed the phone against his ear, the urgency of the call pulling him away from his daughter's escalating feud. It was his mother, her voice trembling with worry. A health scare had rocked the family, and she needed him to come home. The gravity of her words struck him hard, solidifying his feelings of guilt and inadequacy. He had prioritized business over family, and now it felt like the universe was challenging his long-ignored priorities. How could I have let things get so out of control? He thought, his stomach twisting. The irony pierced deeper as he recalled how he had made every decision from a self-serving lens, believing success would elevate his family's well-being. Yet here he was, caught with a phone pressed to his head, at a crossroads where he needed to decide what family truly meant. After the call ended, the silence hollowed in the kitchen. The girls were still giggling and teasing each other about the artichoke, a jovial yet defiant sound. Tom felt the weight of the world on him, a mentor at work, a father at home. Just moments before, he was confronted with a moment of truth about their upbringing. Was this what he wanted for them, a split between the worlds of privilege and empathy? Was that laughter the sound of defiance or the container of untouched joy? Compelled to act, he walked back into the kitchen, where Michelle continued her culinary battle with the twins. He noticed how effortlessly she engaged with them, her hands moving with a fluid grace as she sliced through greens and shared stories of her own childhood, emphasizing how she learned to appreciate food through connection and culture. There she was, demonstrating in real time the very lesson he failed to impart. It was time for him to step in, not as a bystander. "Enough with the artichoke," he said, surprising even himself at the authority his voice held. "Let's shift gears. Michelle, what's next on the menu?" The girls paused, their delight at the scene breaking as abruptly as glass shattering. There was a hint of uncertainty in Emma's eyes, while Lily's face brightened with curiosity. "Pizza," Michelle declared enthusiastically, quickly adding, "We can experiment with toppings, maybe even make it a competition." Tom felt sparks of excitement flicker within him. A cook-off? A chance to turn a chaotic moment into an experience of unity. Maybe this was a remedy he hadn't considered. The prospect of collaboration rather than conflict stirred something deep inside. He wanted to foster creativity in this kitchen, bridging gaps of understanding and fostering a shared experience. As they gathered around the counter, the tension of earlier conflict melted away. They grabbed dough, tossed flour, and through the rhythm of laughter and teamwork, Tom felt a rare clarity settle within him. This was about more than food. It was a collective experience about care, accountability, and most importantly, understanding each other's worldviews. Yet, as flour dust danced in the air, a gnawing anxiety crept back. His mother's health, the family obligation looming over him, pulled at the edges of his newfound clarity. Where was the balance in maintaining this nurturing environment while facing pressing family obligations? The worry settled deep in his gut as the pizza came together brilliantly in their collective hands. The moment was delightful, but the realization loomed. Compassion was not just a sprinkle on top, it was the essence of everything he had neglected. As the aroma of baking dough filled the air, Tom's resolve hardened. He needed to do more than just juggle responsibilities. He had to face them head-on with authenticity. The balancing act wasn't merely a job at the dinner table, it demanded he transcend his own upbringing to nurture empathy fully within his daughters that he watched as the cheese melted, envisioning a pathway to growth. But underneath all the warmth and laughter, a disquiet lingered with an unanswered question: how was he going to integrate these lessons of compassion into the inevitable storm brewing back home? The clock ticked like a countdown to his next choice. Would he prioritize his corporate commitments or dive deeper into uncharted territories of fatherhood? Everything was changing, but nothing was settled. And Tom realized, the time had come to face the impending family crisis not just with wealth, but with the healing power of a heart truly open to understanding. Tom stood in the kitchen, watching the kids as they shaped their pizza dough, a mosaic of flour and laughter filling the air. He savored this feeling of lightness, moments before the weight of his responsibilities pressed in again. The warmth of family dynamics, the clamor of voices, all spun around him like a barrier shielding him from the storm brewing just beyond the safety of their home, but the image of his mother's worried face invaded his mind, crashing through the jovial atmosphere. As the twins worked diligently, their focus shattered the comfortable illusion, prompting Tom to confront the reality he had been shying away from. How had he let the urgency of business claims drown out the voice of family? His mother needed him, and it was becoming painfully clear that he couldn't fight that responsibility with mere distractions. "Tom," Michelle interrupted his thoughts, catching him in a moment of stillness. "You okay?" Her brow furrowed slightly, concern mirroring his own. "Yeah, just a lot on my mind," he replied. The admission hung heavy, an anchor to the many choices he was avoiding. "Want to talk about it?" She pressed gently, her intuitive nature reminding him of how he often overlooked the importance of openness. Until recently, he would have brushed off such inquiries, focusing solely on productivity. But it struck him that every genuine question regarding personal well-being was a prompt for vulnerability, a doorway to deeper connections. "I have to go home soon," he confessed, lowering his voice. "My mother is unwell, and I don't know what to do. There's so much I need to handle. Work is pulling me in one direction, but family." His voice trailed off, the complexity of his dual identity colliding painfully inside. "Maybe it's time to face everything, Tom," Michelle suggested, her practical yet caring tone contrasting sharply with his internal chaos. "You can't build a bridge if you're stuck in the quicksand, right? Focus on what truly matters." Her insight sparked a flicker of hope within him. He found himself contemplating what that could mean, dropping projects that had consumed too much of his spirit. Perhaps the corporate grind was a mask he hid behind, comfortable yet suffocating. A result of his earlier belief that wealth meant worth, success had blinded him to the deeper connections his family required. As the ovens warmed, the realization morphed into something actionable. "You're right." The words produced an odd mix of liberation and anxiety. "I need to make changes, not just this week, but moving forward." The confrontation with his inner turmoil felt less like a daunting challenge and more of a necessity. The truth settled as the aroma of baked dough filled the air, and as they sliced their pizzas, he started discussing plans that reached further than dinner. What if he could transform the family dynamics completely? Create new traditions that centered around connection rather than competition? He imagined visiting his mother's house regularly, organizing family dinners, and sharing stories. He envisioned himself more present at home, guiding his daughters not just in culinary arts but in emotional intelligence. "Michelle, what if I invited my family over for dinner this weekend?" he proposed, suddenly feeling light with the permission to consider this idea. "Now we're talking. Keep it simple and filled with love. I think your daughters would appreciate this, and it might inspire some fun memories." And for the first time in a long while, Tom's mind raced with excitement rather than dread. Yet beneath the lightness, a shadow remained, gnawing at him. With every positive transformation and newfound commitment to his family, he could feel the impending conflict with the work commitments that wouldn't allow even a moment's distraction. Those responsibilities loomed large, and he sensed that even as he pushed for growth, he was merely delaying the confrontation awaiting him back at the office. Was he truly ready to challenge the status quo of his career, all for the sake of authentic connection? The clock continued its relentless countdown, each tick echoing like the rumble of an approaching storm. Maybe the first step was setting boundaries, reclaiming the urgency of his personal life. But what he didn't know was the ramifications of that choice would ripple far beyond his kitchen and challenge the very fabric of his career. The time had come. The decision loomed large on the horizon of his mental landscape. Would he step off the corporate edge into vulnerability, risking everything for a heartfelt reconnection? The balance was delicate, and as he grazed the edges of clarity and confusion, the question crystallized against the warmth of family laughter. How would he handle the pushback that was bound to come both personally and professionally? Tom awoke early the next morning. The golden light streaming through the kitchen windows felt like a world ablaze with opportunity. He glanced around, taking in the remnants of last night's pizza-making frenzy. Flour-dusted surfaces still bore witness to the children's laughter and creativity. But today, that laughter held a new weight, a promise tinged with urgency. The excitement of inviting his family over drowned in the tide of doubt pulling him back to work. As he brewed his coffee, he noticed the looming calendar on the wall, thickly marked with deadlines and commitments that felt increasingly foreign. Each square demanded attention, as if the numbers themselves mocked him for even entertaining thoughts of change. It had always been easy to view work as a relentless machine, a series of tasks to conquer, a race to win. But now, the mere thought of returning to that pace felt suffocating. He took a breath, swirling the coffee mug in his hands, the warmth seeping through his skin into his core. There was something in him that craved connection, a longing that danced just out of reach. Setting the mug down, he pulled out his phone to review his work emails, but the screen flashed overwhelming reminders of everything he needed to accommodate. He hesitated, wrestling with the instinct to dive into tasks versus the pull towards familial warmth and duty. "Tom!" one of the twins shouted, interrupting his thoughts as they bounded into the room, hands sticky from syrup and chocolate. "Can we make breakfast pancakes today?" Their enthusiasm was contagious, sparking joy that temporarily eased the pulse of dread. "Of course, why don't we create a pancake bar? You can choose whatever toppings you want," he replied, embracing the moment. He felt invigorated, their playful banter watering seeds of intention he had sown the night before. This was the life he wanted: spontaneous, messy, full of laughter and love. But as they flipped pancakes, flipping ideas of connection and commitment in his mind, he wrestled again with the thought of his mother. Would she even want to join this vibrant new tradition he was forging? Would being vulnerable and embracing change allow her to see the difference he wanted to make? It was still hard to imagine that a business deal could mean more than a familial gathering, yet it felt weightier. That realization sparked a decision. It was time to confront Lucius, his demanding boss. If he was to restructure his life, he'd need to navigate the corporate landscape with clear boundaries and a better understanding of his own self-worth. "Hey, do you want to help me decide on toppings?" Tom offered the twins, his excitement bubbling up to buoy the moment from slipping back into uncertainty. As they dove into the fruits and sprinkles, he practiced his approach in his mind. Would Lucius see the value in his absence from a late-night meeting if it meant he could be present for his family? Was he ready to voice his desire for balance in the face of an unforgiving corporate culture? The pancakes became his focal point, and as he watched his daughters pile colorful toppings, a determination kindled in him. He would express his needs. He would not compromise his integrity or passion for genuine connection, even if the corporate world responded defensively. Tom envisioned that Monday meeting, the boardroom pouring out suffocating expectations. But perhaps, just perhaps, he could turn it into an opportunity for rational dialogue. If he had prepared his castle, the shift could herald new respect not only for himself but also for his family's needs. As breakfast drew to an end, he could see their joy transform into confidence through simple actions. Maybe today was the first step towards changing not just his family dynamics but also his professional path, a reevaluation of what success truly meant. And then came a jarring reminder. His phone buzzed sharply, a notification from work, guiding him back into the somber embrace of obligation. He glanced at it. The urgency of business never seemed to rest, often putting family in a persistent second position, yet he was no longer the man who would ignore his fears or neglect his family's needs. He rose, voice steady as he declared to his daughters, "Let us compare our pancake creation to my next big decision." They giggled, their energy surging in response, a tangible connection forged in flour and syrup. The stage was set. It was now or never, but as he embraced hope, he couldn't shake the feeling that the upcoming confrontation would shift things in a way he hadn't fully anticipated. What would happen when he finally stood face to face with Lucius? Would he be heard, or would it only deepen the chasm between his work and personal life? As he cleaned up the remnants of breakfast, the echo of uncertainty loomed large, signaling that the defining moment was approaching. Tom's heart raced as he pulled into the parking lot of the office, a mix of anticipation and trepidation coursing through him. The bright summer sun contrasted sharply with the gray facades of the corporate buildings, a reminder of the life he was stepping away from. Would his choice today ignite a change, or would it drown beneath the weight of established expectations and rigid norms? As he settled into his desk, the familiar hum of the office enveloped him, with colleagues engrossed in their routines. He looked around, feeling like an outsider peering into a world that had defined him for far too long. The sprawling spreadsheets and lofty projections that used to energize him now felt suffocating. He shifted his gaze to the meeting room, a place where deals were made and futures decided. Tom had sharpened his resolve in the comforting embrace of pancakes and laughter, yet a nagging voice whispered doubts. Lucius was known for his uncompromising nature, and his reaction could either mar Tom's aspirations or illuminate a path forward. When the clock struck 9, employees trickled into the conference room, eyes glued to their devices, concerns about revenue and projections at the forefront of their minds. Tom took a deep breath, the weight of the moment pressing heavily upon him. Would he find the courage to articulate his newfound perspective amidst a sea of corporate jargon? Before the meeting began, he recalled the joy in his daughter's laughter, their opinions unfettered by fear. "I will not negotiate the worth of my personal life," he reminded himself silently. His emotions swelled, bubbling into a determination that defied the expectations often tethered to him. As Lucius began outlining the agenda, Tom was struck by the exacting nature of his boss's words. Beneath the layers of professionalism lay a culture he longed to change, one that sacrificed employees on the altar of productivity. This was it. This was the moment where he could voice his need for balance. "Lucius," he interrupted, feeling the rising heat of adrenaline, a mask of composure on his face. The room fell silent, brows raised in curiosity. "I think it's time we speak about our work-life balance and how it affects our productivity." A few heads turned, surprise etched on their faces. Tom's heart hammered in his chest, a mix of urgency and vulnerability in his tone. It wasn't just about him, it was about every colleague who struggled silently under the relentless pressure. Lucius narrowed his eyes, the commanding presence he held turning sharply towards Tom. And what would you propose, Tom? We're all here to drive profits, not engage in touchy-feely discussions. Each breath felt like an eternity as Tom gathered his thoughts, channeling the spirit of pancakes shared with his daughters. I believe that when we allow our team to prioritize their personal lives, we will see enhanced creativity and engagement at work. It's not just about getting the job done, it's about creating a culture that values us as individuals. Silence settled thickly in the air. Tom's pulse quickened as the weight of his words sank in. He could almost hear the internal dialogues of his colleagues, weighing their own struggles against the corporate ethos. As uncertainty mingled with hope, Lucius regarded him, skepticism and intrigue battling in his gaze. You really think a cultural shift can happen amidst these numbers on this board? Here it was, the fork in the road. Tom could feel the tide turning. This was the vulnerability he had long avoided. I do. We would need bold leadership, but if we foster an environment where family values are respected, it can cultivate trust and higher performance overall. The murmurs around the table indicated he had struck a nerve. He caught sight of a few nodding in agreement. Maybe, just maybe, this was the catalyst for change he needed. But as he met Lucius's gaze, he sensed a storm brewing beneath the outward calm. Tom had presented his heart. Now, the reaction could lead to an uproar or an awakening. The executive world was rarely forgiving, yet here he stood, eager yet precarious. As Lucius finally replied, the tension in the room burgeoned, primed for a defining moment that would affect not only Tom's career but also the very fabric of the organization itself. Would his idea hold water in this corporate ocean, or would it sink under scrutiny? Before Tom could catch his breath, Lucius leaned forward, a challenging glint in his eyes. Let us see just how passionate you really are about this. The next few moments would either launch Tom down a new path or reinforce the barriers he longed to dismantle. The stakes had never felt higher. The atmosphere in the conference room felt electric as Lucius's challenge reverberated off the walls. Tom's pulse raced. He sensed a pivot, a moment that could redefine not just his career but the very culture embedded within the company. There was no turning back now. He had ignited a flame, and it was time to stoke it. Let me talk to you about a pilot program, Tom said, his voice steadier than he felt. We start with a small team, perhaps our marketing department, and we introduce flexible working hours. We can gauge the impact on productivity and morale. If successful, we can present the results as a model for the company. Lucius raised an eyebrow, skepticism transformed into measured curiosity. And you believe a few flexible hours will drastically change mindsets entrenched in this culture? It may sound simplistic, but we're social beings. Happy employees create successful outcomes, Tom replied, feeling the resoluteness in his words grow stronger with each heartbeat. He envisioned colleagues inspired to bring their whole selves to work, unfettered by the anxiety of balancing personal and professional pressures. As murmurs of contemplation spread through the room, Tom's gaze flickered to his coworkers. Faces once masked in resignation now bore traces of interest. It was a glimpse of hope, but he had to solidify that with clarity. Also, I propose we hold monthly wellness sessions, mindfulness workshops, team hikes, or simply allowing time for employees to recharge. It will not only foster a culture of support but could even lead to innovative thinking. Yes, but the board might not look too kindly upon what they see as distractions, Lucius countered, folding his arms. They look at distractions, but those of us who are living it know the cost of a life lived only for work, Tom shot back, emboldened by newfound conviction. If we can demonstrate an increase in creativity and fewer sick days, they'll have to consider it. It starts with us taking that leap. An unexpected silence hung in the air as several corners of the room turned to him, contemplating the potential ramifications of what he was proposing. To some, it may have seemed radical, to others, it held the promise of freedom they yearned for. Tom internally questioned if he was ready for this uphill battle, but this was his moment to stand firm against the tides of complacency. Considered a trial run for the company and about my personal stake in advocating for this shift, he continued, plowing ahead even as anxiety coiled in his stomach. Change is difficult, but the ripple effects can shift a culture towards one that values life outside work. I'm in a position to model this ethos, and I'm willing to put my reputation on the line. The corner of Lucius's mouth twitched, as if he begrudgingly respected Tom's audacity. If it fails, Tom, don't think I won't hold you accountable. This is corporate, and numbers are king. So be prepared. Uncertainty gnawed at Tom, but he realized this was as much about integrity as it was about potential success. Every fiber of his being urged him to push, to dismantle the barriers that dictated a work-first approach to existence. I'm ready for accountability. This means more than profits, it's about people. He asserted that he felt waves of tension ebb and flow, feeling his colleagues weighing their allegiance to the corporate snake pit versus the personal growth this new narrative offered. He had garnered attention and perhaps allies, but the question lingered, would they walk with him? Lucius leaned back, the calculating look still present, but beneath it lay a flicker of consideration. Meet me tomorrow with a detailed proposal. You'd better make it impressive, or this will all end here, Tom. As the meeting adjourned, Tom stepped back into the common area, the corporate hum replaced by the chatter of colleagues re-entering their pre-meeting routines. Had he just opened the door to a new chapter, or was he simply setting himself up for failure? There were risks to take, and he felt the weight of them, heavy on his shoulders, but lighter in his spirit. Navigating this path would require unyielding tenacity. Tom collected his thoughts, piecing together his vision of change, but he knew one more thing: he needed support from those around him. As he began plotting his next steps, he felt the sensation of a shift brewing inside him, not just for himself, but for everyone tethered to the oppressive corporate structure of the company. The stakes had never felt higher, but Tom was willing to chase the dream of transformation and perhaps find a path to greater personal fulfillment in the process. Tomorrow would reveal if he could rally the support necessary to turn a risky proposal into a bold movement. The impetus for change was set. Now it was time to harness that momentum, or risk losing it all in the name of corporate tradition. The following day dawned, a mix of trepidation and thrill coursing through Tom as he prepared for his encounter with Lucius. This was no ordinary meeting. It felt pivotal, a flashpoint where his aspirations could either spring into life or collapse under corporate scrutiny. Tom devoted hours to refining his proposal, scrutinizing every aspect, looking for weaknesses and bolstering them with hard facts and anecdotal evidence from his conversations with colleagues. As he made his way to the conference room, he mentally rehearsed his presentation. He envisioned standing before Lucius, with charts that demonstrated potential productivity increases, statistics that showcased the benefits of employee wellness initiatives, even testimonials from team members who were supportive of the change. He had to come off not just as an employee with a bold idea but as a serious contender in the corporate landscape. Walking into the conference room, Tom found Lucius already seated at the table, his posture relaxed but his expression unreadable. The air between them crackled with an unspoken tension. Tom took a deep breath, trying to quell the anxious fluttering in his stomach, and set down his proposal before him. Tom, Lucius began, his voice curt. Let us see what you have. The moment he started to speak, words flowed with a newfound clarity. He outlined his vision, more polished than the night prior, and with each point he made, he stole glances at Lucius, searching for signs of approval. It's not merely about flexible hours, he elaborated, it's about fostering an environment where creativity thrives. We'll measure employee engagement during these pilot months. A sense of autonomy can radically transform how we approach our projects. Lucius listened intently, an eyebrow raised in skepticism. But there was something different in his demeanor, maybe a flicker of intrigue. Tom pressed on, highlighting case studies from companies that had successfully implemented similar changes, their data supporting the tangible outcomes that followed. When he finished, Lucius leaned back, fingers steepled. You've clearly put a lot of thought into this, he acknowledged. But I need to know, you've mentioned creating this awareness of life outside work. Have you considered the inherent risks involved? What happens if productivity drops instead? Tom hesitated. The question felt deceptively simple, but it probed deep into his convictions. It's true there's risk, but isn't the current model of sacrificing our personal lives a risk too? Our people are burning out. His heart raced at the audacity of speaking from his personal experience. Too many hours and not enough human connection are costing us innovation. I believe a more integrated approach could reduce those costs significantly. Lucius regarded him for a long moment, eyes narrowing. So, if this doesn't work as you envision, you're placing your career on the line? Yes, Tom replied, steadying himself. I believe in this, and if it fails, I want accountability placed where it belongs with me. But I'm convinced it won't. Empowered employees will redefine productivity metrics simply through increased morale. The silence that lingered felt heavy, almost as if Lucius was weighing options far beyond the corporate sphere. Tom's own self-doubt crept in. Could he genuinely influence such an entrenched system? Would he end up only as another footnote in the company's history, marked by the failures of bold attempts? You make compelling arguments, Tom, Lucius finally said. But I need to understand how this will positively affect the bottom line. Your projections should focus on hard numbers if you want this to go to the board. Are you prepared to dive deeper into the financials? Tom felt a spark of resolve ignite within him. Absolutely. I'll outline a comprehensive financial model comparing pre- and post-implementation productivity and even potential reductions in sick days, he responded, adrenaline pushing him forward. If I can present those figures convincingly, we can make a case that change is not just idealistic but essential. As Lucius nodded, the corner of his mouth twitched upward slightly. There might just be room for this, Tom. But remember, it's about execution. Invest time in refining your financial strategy, and we'll touch base next week. Stepping out of the conference room, Tom felt the weight of uncertainty dissolve into a sense of purpose. He had exposed himself, advocated for a shift that stemmed from genuine concern for his colleagues, and battled with the staunch corporate mindset that clung desperately to traditional values. But as he planned the revisions to his proposal, something nagged at him. Were his motives entirely selfless? Did he not also crave respect, recognition, and a sense of belonging beyond the confines of his office? He realized a confrontation with these truths would soon come. As the deeper he delved into corporate transformation, the more he would have to confront his own vulnerabilities, and in that confrontation, the question loomed, was he truly ready to disrupt the status quo, risking not only his career but the very sense of self he had constructed? There was more to uncover, a reckoning teetering on the edge of his ambitions, and it loomed ever closer. Tom sank into his chair in the home office, his thoughts swirling like autumn leaves in the wind. The meeting with Lucius had crystallized the stakes involved in his proposal, but simultaneously unearthed a deeper internal conflict. He couldn't ignore the gnawing doubts about his motivations any longer. Did he really care about his colleagues' well-being, or was he merely seeking validation? That question haunted him, determined to transform his proposal into a fortification built on both passion and statistics. He opened his laptop. The glow illuminated the room and cast long shadows on the walls, mirroring the uncertainty that now accompanied his newfound ambition. He scoured research articles, books on workplace psychology, and employee engagement studies. Each word he consumed became fuel for his argument, each statistic a stepping stone toward a robust financial model that could sway the board. The days blurred into nights as Tom meticulously drafted his revisions. He layered graphs that emphasized potential benefits, tweaked descriptions to better encompass the essence of his argument, and prepared a forecast that projected clear advantages and projected cost savings. Yet, every time he thought he was approaching clarity, another layer of complexity sprang up, a new worry creeping into the corners of his mind. The potential for failure was an ever-present specter. Late one evening, fatigued from hours of work, he decided to step away from the screen. A walk outside might shake loose the knots tangling his thinking. As he strolled through his quiet neighborhood, the crisp night air filled his lungs and allowed him to exhale a little of the tension he carried. Yet, with each step down the sidewalk, thoughts of past successes mingled with his self-doubt. He recalled the early days of his career, how he relished the challenge of solving problems, how he had once thrived on creativity and collaboration. Had he let the corporate grind extinguish that spark? Sifting through memories, he recognized moments where he had impactful interactions with colleagues, where they would brainstorm around a table littered with sticky notes and half-empty coffee cups. Those were the pinnacle moments of his career, not PowerPoints or financial analyses. A realization washed over him: his proposal couldn't be just about numbers. It had to reflect the essence of what kept those moments alive: connection. With that insight, Tom returned to his laptop, eyes burning with renewed vigor. He framed not just the statistics but also the stories of his colleagues, their struggles and aspirations that could only be touched by a humane approach to employee well-being. Wouldn't a cohesive narrative anchored in both data and personal experience embody his vision? He understood that to evoke change, he needed the heart at the core of his proposal, not just the brain. Nights evolved into a blur of late hours and stolen fragments of sleep, punctuated by insightful bursts of creativity as Tom engaged in weaving together personal testimonies and hard data into a compelling narrative. Each edit pushed his ideas further away from mere corporate jargon towards something authentic, something that could resonate deeply with the board members who would ultimately judge his ambitions. But as he weaved his narrative, the invitation for self-reflection grew stronger. What would this shift mean for him personally? Would he be brave enough to uphold these values not just in his proposal, but in his daily interactions? The realization dawned on him holding this space for his colleagues meant he would have to embody the change he wanted to see, to challenge his own tendencies toward perfectionism and rigidity. As days passed, Tom prepared for his next meeting with Lucius, which loomed just days away. Confidence mixed with the slight tremors of vulnerability, he now understood that the stakes were not merely his career but the reaffirmation of his commitment to a more humane workplace. With the proposal narrowed down and resonant, Tom felt something shift again. He was not just an employee with an idea, he was forging a path back to being the person who inspired others to grow. Yet, as invigorating as this path seemed, he couldn't shake the fear of rejection, nor the possibility that his proposal might fall short of expectations once again. The day of the meeting arrived. He stood before the mirror, straightening his tie, rehearsing one last time, but with more than just facts. This time he would speak from a place of vulnerability. As he walked into the office, a knot formed in his stomach. He recognized this moment it was time to face the potential fallout of his aspirations and the profound reflections they demanded. Ready or not, he whispered to himself, this is where it begins. But the shadow of uncertainty loomed ahead as he crossed the threshold, pushing him to wonder, if he failed, would he lose more than just his proposal? Could he lose sight of the person he was striving to become? Steeling himself, Tom walked into the sleek, glass-paneled conference room where the board had assembled. Their faces were a mixture of skepticism and curiosity, eyes glinting with challenge. He could almost feel their unspoken judgments, ready to dissect his every word. Yet, there was no retreat for him now. Doubt could only be silenced through action. As he introduced his proposal, the familiar mix of statistics and personal anecdotes mingled in his mind. With each point he made, he strove to articulate not just the financial benefits but the emotional undertones of the project. This is about nurturing a culture of belonging, he asserted, framing his words with a conviction that surprised even him. It felt freeing, as if he were shedding the constraints of mere corporate speak. Yet, as he unfolded the data and shared stories of colleagues who had faced burnout and disconnection, he sensed a shift in the room. For the first time, he wasn't just selling a proposal, he was sharing a collective urgency for change. The breath of sincerity in his voice grew stronger, and he noticed the board members leaning in, their initial skepticism tempered by something more profound curiosity. But as he concluded, a sharp voice pierced the air. Lucius S. You've presented a compelling narrative, Tom, but will it translate into action? How do we ensure this is anything more than a fleeting moment of inspiration? The question hung in the air, a weighty challenge that forced Tom to confront not only the board's concerns but his own. He had created a narrative driven by a desire for connection, yet now he faced a more vital question. Could he maintain this narrative once he stepped away from the conference room? Fueled by urgency, he spoke from the heart. The questions you've raised are central. It requires a cultural commitment, not merely leadership approval. In fostering this shift, we need allies across all levels. Everyone should be invested in their well-being. He paused, letting that idea resonate. This is more than a project, it's an evolution of our workplace and a commitment to each other. If I am to stand behind this, I have to be accountable as well. I'm willing to go first and lead by example. This flicker of vulnerability caught him off guard. Could he really commit to the kind of leadership that required showing his own flaws and insecurities? The thought was terrifying, yet within that fear lay an uncharted realm of possibilities. The board's response turned out to be unpredictable. While Lucius appeared contemplative, others offered nods of approval. Encouragement mingled with doubt, and Tom's hope flickered brightly amid the uncertainty. It wasn't just the fate of his proposal that lay in the balance, but the prospect of reshaping his role and relationship with the entire organization. As he walked out, his heart raced. The meeting might have shifted his fate, but he knew the real test awaited him. Exponential change wouldn't happen overnight. The commitment he sought to embody within himself. Could he consistently promote a new culture while navigating the old frameworks at play? Returning home, Tom felt that familiar weight settle back onto his shoulders. It sparked a profound realization. This journey would require immense courage and unwavering commitment to his values, far beyond that single meeting. It would test the authenticity of his intentions daily. Suddenly, a thought jolted him awake from his reverie. What if he wasn't the only one carrying this weight? Could there be hidden allies within his organization, colleagues yearning for the same transformation? How could he connect with them, and would they be willing to support each other? The next chapter rested on forging those connections and galvanizing a collective spirit. Tom smiled, feeling a surge of excitement mingled with the fear of the unknown. Perhaps he had taken the first step into an arena where true collaboration could emerge from the shadows, but as he lay down that night, the question loomed: how would he initiate this journey from personal commitment to collective action without becoming lost in the very system he aimed to change? The sun cast its warm rays through the kitchen window, illuminating the remnants of yesterday's chaotic yet joy-filled pizza-making adventure. For Tom Harrison, the morning light symbolized a newly forged commitment to transform both his home life and his workplace. He stood, coffee mug in hand, contemplating the journey that had brought him here, a dual path of personal and professional evolution that demanded authenticity, vulnerability, and vision. No longer was he simply a millionaire CEO consumed by corporate goals. He had become a father who understood that true success lay in connection, compassion, and presence. The chaos of the kitchen had not only taught his twin daughters how to interact with food, but it had also sparked a revolution inside him. At that moment, he felt a clear and unwavering conviction to redefine what fulfillment meant for him, personally and professionally. His resolve strengthened with each step he took into the office later that day. He was no longer a passive player in his career, but a proactive architect of change. As he approached his desk, the familiar hum of the corporate machinery filled the air, but it felt less suffocating now, more like a landscape full of opportunities awaiting exploration. He was armed with not just statistics but a compelling narrative that fused personal experience with invaluable insights gathered from his colleagues. The meeting with Lucius awaited, and this time, Tom was resolute. No more tiptoeing around issues that affected not only his life but the lives of everyone in the company. He lined up his proposal, threading together statistics of productivity, wellness initiatives, and testimonies from colleagues eager to foster a renewed workplace culture. He envisioned not merely gaining approval, but instigating a fundamental shift toward embracing well-being alongside profitability. As he sat in the conference room, facing the board, he felt a surge of confidence that had once eluded him. Lucius brought up the risks associated with change, the potential backlash, but instead of shaking his confidence, Tom stood firm. He spoke directly, from his heart: this is not a fleeting moment. It is the collective well-being of our team, and together we can foster an environment where we thrive as individuals, not just employees. Each voice in the room attributed meaning to his words. They resonated like an echo of unfulfilled hope, a yearning for connection that transcended the rigid corporate frame. When Lucius finally acknowledged the merit in his proposal, it felt as if time had paused, a moment carved into the realm of possibility. "All right, Tom. Let us begin the trial and marketing," he declared. The applause from his peers melted away the final threads of doubt that clung to Tom. His journey, his vulnerability, and his newfound clarity had culminated in a victory that radiated beyond the corporate walls. It was triumph born from tenacity, a well-earned realization that his worth was not dictated solely by his financial success but by his impact on others. With the pilot program in motion, Tom ensured that he practiced what he preached. He held monthly wellness sessions, not just as a formality, but as genuine opportunities for connection. He transformed his approach to leadership, encouraging dialogue, heeding feedback, and fostering an environment of empathy. The initiative not only improved morale but instigated creative breakthroughs within the team. As productivity rose, so did the collective spirit among employees. At home, a similar evolution punctuated his days. He carved out moments to actively engage with Lily and Emma, inviting them into the kitchen and realizing he could impart the lessons Michelle had shown him. They made breakfast together, explored new recipes, and most importantly, shared stories that built bridges of understanding. Deep conversations over dinner became routine, instilling values of compassion, gratitude, and awareness in their hearts. Tom's growth became evident in every aspect of his life. He was no longer simply fulfilling roles but embodying values that resonated with his true self. He confidently navigated corporate meetings, sharing own narratives and prioritizing discussions that fostered integrity. Recognition followed not just from Lucius, but from countless colleagues who began engaging with him on similar journeys of change. In each applauding voice, Tom felt validation both internal and external that he had accomplished something significant. He was transforming not only shareholder returns but fostering a climate where everyone felt heard and valued. The murmur of gratitude from his daughters during bedtime stories became a testament to his newfound parenting approach, one rooted in empathy rather than obligation. Standing in the kitchen, filled with the aroma of spices and the echo of laughter, Tom beamed with pride. Each moment of connection was a testament to his evolution, a journey punctuated by integrity, commitment, and love. The final step lay before him, promising to solidify all he had worked for: the opportunity to present his journey of transformation to a wider audience. A webinar shared with corporate leaders seeking guidance on fostering cultures of empathy awaited. Now, as he prepared to step into this new light, he understood that true achievement was not in prestige or wealth but in the realm of heart-centered leadership. What Tom had created had the potential to echo far beyond his own life. It could shift the very culture of organizations throughout the corporate world, embracing humanity in a realm often fractured by profit-driven motives. This was the moment where he could showcase his profound journey of change. The lens of transformation pointed not only toward his professional landscape but redirected toward his deepest self as a parent, leader, and individual. His heart swelled with the knowledge that he was not just a millionaire CEO now but a man of substance, forging a legacy that would ripple through his daughters' lives well into the future, and it was time to share that journey. Don't wait even one more second to share these insights. You need to subscribe now to discover how personal transformations can redefine the professional landscape. Leave a like to feed the algorithm and ensure these stories reach those who need them the most. Comment below with your reactions and theories about how one can achieve such incredible growth. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need this spark of inspiration in their lives. This is the moment to show your support.